wash day, and I'm wearing 2 bonnets because there's so much oil on my hair that I was like, I'm going to destroy my bedding with this pre-poo if I'm not careful. So yeah, I'm about to take my shower, get a wash and condition going. So yeah, short hair. This is after the pre-poo, before the wash and condition. So anyway, I definitely need some more shower caps. We are on the deep condition portion of the day. As you can see, I like to wear a bikini top. I like to wear a bikini top in between my rinse and my deep condition and my rinse out for the day. So fruit is on the loom, not of the tree, and Daddy was the apple of my deep condition, no extradition. My shower cap on under my fashionista hat that I got from Amazon. But yeah, look at the baby. You ain't ready. That's all I'm saying. You're just not ready. Alright, so deep condition. Bottle says an hour. I'll probably do it for like 4 hours. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it quicker. Who knows? I'm gonna go smoke and start my day though. So I'll see you guys. Catch you on the flippity flip.
3 hours later.
So looks pretty good.
I just wanted to give you an update on what little I've heard from my critique partners, just because first of all, they don't even know each other. And they both reached out to me last week, which I thought that's really synchronicitous or whatever. So I just wanted to mention that. But they both also mentioned, and so did my beta reader, they all mentioned having to start over. But I was thinking that that was immediately a bad thing. Even though, of course, none of them said that. I think it was more so because I hadn't given any background as to what the story was about. I didn't even talk about what the genre was. Not really. I know 2 of them for a fact knew I was in fantasy at very least. But I think that's all they really knew. And then the third one, I'm not even sure if that person knew I did fantasy because he's more of a realist as far as his art. So, yeah, not sure if they were just like, what the hell am I reading? Because they didn't know what was coming. But that alone was a lesson in itself. Like, make sure you give summaries or a synopsis or, you know, just the back cover type summary of the story so that you can give people something to anticipate, which is exactly, that was like almost a month ago now that I sent it. And Story mentioned, I think last week, less than a week ago, maybe a week ago, I was reading in this book, like, you know, he was saying, you know, the reason for the trailer is so when people come to the movie, they already are prepared for what you're about to give them. Their mind is ready. They don't want to miss a thing. And you've given them 2 minutes of 2 hours worth of story, and it's primed their brains and it's primed their attention, you know, so they're more focused. So it's definitely clearly my fault that I haven't heard anything back from them yet, but that, of course, I was placing no fault on them either because they're doing me a huge favor. So whenever they're going to do it is good with me. But seeing that this is like my first draft that I'm sharing, of course I didn't have any pressure because I have more drafts that I have to churn out. But I think I might, like, if I have a second draft done before my 2 critique partners get back to me, I'm definitely going to give them a summary, and then I'm going to give them a new copy and tell them to just scrap whatever they have currently. So, yeah, that gives me kind of a new, like, well, I know I want to do X, Y, and Z before I do my next draft, but if I finish all of that before, you know, they get back into it, like, it might put a new fire under my butt. Like, I might go a lot faster than I was initially intending to go, because I want to read the story. I want to get through my handwritten note. The point is I have plenty to do, and they'll get back to me eventually, and it's just a matter of, are they going to get back to me before I give them a new draft or not? And, you know, either way is okay with me, because I'm still going to need their notes, even if it's from the original version that I sent out. So my beta reader, he let me know that there was a moment right after the climax of my story that was too convenient for the main character of the short story. And even though it wasn't, it was written far too convenient. So that was something that I wasn't able to know as the person who knows everything about the story. I know that that wasn't a convenient moment. I know that that moment was actually highly motivated, but I didn't think it was necessary to introduce the reason why it was so motivated in the short story. I was saving that because it involves another organization who doesn't really play a role in the story where the characters can see yet. So I was going to save it for the next tale, which is the main story. But my beta reader mentioning that moment needed more motivation made it kind of like a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to have to show this organization in this short story. But I don't have to tell the story about the organization in the short story. So it's almost giving me, like, because there was a place where this organization is involved, but it's kind of behind the scenes, and it leads to something that's shown in the short story only very briefly. So I was like, well, I can probably just not write about that organization at all right now. But in that brief moment where I have an opportunity where I could have used them or shown that they were used there, now I'm thinking I'm definitely going to have to show that. Which almost to me, like, now I'm excited, because before I was like, I think I just need to cut this. I don't even need to take the reader's mind down that road. And I still I'm not going to take them very far down that road, but it will leave an Easter egg to a much more major arc to come. So like I said, both of my critique partners are working on their own crafts. They're both writers. So it was really good to know that they're working on some stuff this week, because I'm also their critique partner. I just wanted to get back to how, like, obviously I value both of their opinions as well as their writing styles. So here I am with a story that they're both telling me that they have to start over, and they don't know each other. So there's no way that they could have talked to each other to have come up with that. You know what I mean? So even though I'm kind of like nervous, like, why do you have to start over? The other part of me who wrote the story is like, girl, you know they had to start over because you had to start over. Like, I would write a scene, and then we'll get to the next scene in the chronological order of events, but it's about a different person now, and then I would have to go switch back to that last person again for the third part, you know what I mean? So it's person A, person B, person A again, and then I'm like, where did I leave off on person A? So I have to, skip over person B, go back to person A, and then read to the end of their chapter, and then start their next chapter from where I left off. But I had to leave that person B in there because chronologically, that's what happens. That's how the reader needs to see it. So I just have a feeling, like, I don't think it's a bad thing, though, because when I read the story and I don't stop, from beginning to end, I can binge read it. Like, it's really good to me. You know, as the person who wrote it, obviously it's good to me. So I satisfy the only person who I need to satisfy when it comes to my writing. But I do still want to edit for other people to understand and enjoy. So I look forward to them telling me why they had to start over, but I think it's more so just because they're busy. They have things to do. They're doing the same thing I'm doing. And as a writer, if I have to, like, if I sleep, like if I write, and then I sleep, and then I wake up the next day, and then I have to go back before I write the next part, of course they'll experience the same thing. I know the story. I know these people. I'm learning these people that I'm writing. So these other people who are reading it, who have no idea who these characters are and only barely know the genre that I'm writing in, obviously they have to start over. So note to self, lesson to self, definitely give a synopsis or a summary no matter what. If you want your critique partner to get into it, give them a little something. Or even like a very, very short prologue is what I did on the very first story that I wrote. That doesn't have an end, but I gave the prologue, which is a portion of the end. It's like the meat and potatoes of the story. And then I did the beginning of the story. So just with that alone, my teacher at the time, my creative writing teacher, could tell just off of that, like, hey, you're a really good writer. And even though he wasn't a nice guy, you know what I mean? It still meant a lot that he liked my writing. And I was like, well, maybe I can write books. And I just didn't really actually try to do it until 10 years later, but here we are 14 years later, and I just kind of have this feeling like it's okay if they need to start over. So it makes sense that they might have to start over for another reason, because in some scenes I will, like I said, I'm writing in chronological order, and so character A might be in the exact same place that they left off when I interjected with person B. You know what I mean? So person A is on the floor when we leave off. Then person B happens. And then we pick up on person A and they're getting off the floor. You see what I mean? So as I'm writing these scenes and I'm trying to keep making sure I'm flowing this scene with this scene, I'm putting person B in between, which is chronologically correct, but they have their own arc. And their arc, their subplot, in some cases, not all, even comes off as a different genre, or it's a different feeling. Like, or maybe, or say, like, let's give you a new scenario. We're going to use person A, B, and C again, but I need to throw in a C this time. So say person A's story is dramatic. Person B's story is dramatic but also fantastical, and then person C's story is fantastical but comedic. You see what I'm saying? So here I am with these three arcs, and they're varying sizes, varying lengths. You can see how they might have to start over, and it's not like, it is clear who's the main character, but it's also not. Like, if I'm following genre conventions, which in a lot of cases I am, you can tell this is the main character because they start right here. But if you are just reading the story and you don't know that rather I'm following the conventions or not, you might be like, is this the main character? Is this the main character? Is this the main character? You see what I mean? Which leads me to my next point. The fact that they all had to start over made me wonder if my opening scene was boring. I obviously know that you want to make the first scene interesting, so I did the best that I could with that. But one thing that people try to avoid is starting with dialogue, and I had a hard time trying to get my way around that, because I wanted to, obviously the short story to me has a main character, and that's who I started with. You don't have to do that, but I did try to start in the most interesting place. And that took me to a different character. So with that character then starting the story, obviously I wondered, should I just make this the main character? And yes and no, in that yes, he is the main character of another tale. He is not the main character of this tale. So then I tried to ask, well, can I get around telling this tale? The answer, again, yes and no, in that, no, I don't have to make it a standalone story. But for the character who's the main character here, even if I make her a B character later, this part of her story is going to come up. And then that led me to what originally happened. So I came full circle to wondering if I should just make this a flashback moment. But it was too much. Like, it just so much happened. And yes, okay, I could brush that under to the bottom 90% of the iceberg that nobody has to see and just show that 10% and make it really good. Just so good. But then I felt like I would be pulling a Stephanie Meyer and making a Brie Tanner, you know what I mean? Like, or pulling a J.K. Rowling and doing a, what is it? Hunting, oh frick, what's the name of the story? What to Expect? No. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I didn't want to do it that way. I was like, if I'm going to make this a standalone book, I'd rather tell it chronologically from where I am, which is using this as a way to learn the rest of the world. I can take this slice and show it to people like freshly after I've only perceived it myself. Like, I'm learning this, I've written it, it's beautiful, here it is for you to read, and we are all going to continue together. Or I could do what everybody else, well, you know, what Stephanie Meyer and J.K. Rowling did, and they probably also wanted to go a different route with publishing. So they probably had no choice but to start where they started. I think I'm going to be doing things out of my pocket and indie publishing, so I can start wherever the heck I want in that case. And if it doesn't go well, then I'm the only person that invested in myself, so I'm not going to drop me from my own agency. You know what I mean? So I was like, definitely want to tell this story first. So back to me trying to start it in the most interesting place, which kept being this other character. And so, like, I mean, the first line of this guy's story, like, that's where I want to start. That's where I was like, that's where we start. So I tried that, making him the main character, and then it ended up telling me so much that I do want to tell, but I don't want to info dump it. I want it to be a story. And so because it's a story and it's a good story, it's going, and it led me to the top of the first book or the main tale or the next book. Like, so short story and then the main tale. Short story and then the first story is how I see it. The half story and then the first story. So my first story, my main tale, is where starting with this guy took me. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to stop here, that's not a whole story. And I do want to give you a beginning, a middle, and an end. Or like, what's my man? R.L. Stein said, a beginning, a middle, and a twist. I want to give you that before I leave you. I don't want to leave you with a cliffhanger that makes you not feel hungry enough to continue. Or not, you know what I mean? I want to whet your appetite, but I don't want to leave you dry, high and dry. So I take you on this next tale, and I see myself being able to start with that most interesting character. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So I see myself being able to eventually give you that story with this guy as the main character, or at least seemingly so for a time. But I can't do that in the short story without taking you too far outside of the short story. So then I said, what if I start with him and then still continue the rest of the story as if she is the main character? And I was going to do that, and then it ended up being so much longer before I introduced her at all. And there was like a short place where I could have introduced her, but it didn't work without that opening scene. So it just was like, she's not coming in until halfway through the story, but she's the main character, and that's a thing that can be done, but it's not a thing that is easy to do well, nor is that what I really want to do. So reading story asked the question, begged for me to start at her inciting incident. So as it pertains to Robert McKee's story, the inciting incident radically upsets the balance of forces in the protagonist's life.
The inciting incident first throws the protagonist's life out of balance, then arouses in him the desire to restore that balance. The inciting incident of the central plot must happen on screen, but it doesn't say that it necessarily has to be in the beginning. So, and then on another page, 202, he goes on to say, the location of the central plot's inciting incident is found in the answer to this question. How much does the audience need to know about the protagonist and his world to have a full response? So basically, you're not to give too much and insult your reader in a way that implies that they don't understand the implications that surrounds the details that you've given them. But you also want to give enough that they're going to hang on with you through the end of the story.
Her inciting incident was the past compared to where I've been writing. So even though it doesn't have to be shown to you right at the beginning of the story, I could do that, but then it would take you too far, and the rest of the information I want to give at that time, I don't want to give it until later. And these are all things that story is making me think is just, it's not good or bad, it's just more so telling about who I am as a person, that I want to tell you the story in that kind of order. So he did make me, however, think further about her conscious desire and her unconscious desire, because I have it as if it appears, because of course the character thinks that their conscious desire is driving their actions, when in fact, like all the rest of us, it's our unconscious desire that drives us. So at one point, I think she openly admits her unconscious desire, but she's kind of joking, so she doesn't really take it as such. And she pretends that that's what's driving her. She lets people believe that that's what's driving her, but what's actually consciously driving her is what she is aware that she's keeping as a secret. So to the reader, I also want to keep that a secret. And so in the end, it obviously will come to light in the short story, and it comes at the right time. So I don't feel a need to go back that far to tell her story, because we start at the inciting incident of her unconscious desire. So based on story, Robert McKee, and how he describes certain things, I think I start at the exact right spot. So now my job is to make that scene as interesting as possible, even if it is only dialogue. And I definitely was making sure to do that, because I did not want to lose the reader in dialogue. And I wanted to give that first sentence that was really going to grab on. The first sentence and also the last line of that chapter, I wanted to hold on tight, and everything in between. So even though it's dialogue, I made it as short as possible. It is full of words that will trigger you and make you listen, because these are things that are actually going to happen. Like nothing is false advertising. It's all, this is what we're about to talk about. So we might as well let you know that this is also her concern. Make it in your face, since everything else is just dialogue. It's not just dialogue. There is no just dialogue. Every single word is important, obviously. And if not, cut that shit out. But the thing of it is, I wanted to make it even more interesting, and without adding stuff just to be interesting. So there were secrets that I had to divulge early that makes you say, oh, well, I bet I know how this ends. And maybe you do, but there's 20 other things that you'll never guess in the story. So I feel that first chapter, that moment of dialogue with tension, is what one of my critique partners did give back to me. So I really appreciate that. But I also made it unethical. Like, I hint at poor ethics, and I make you empathetic with the character in the first line, which is kind of what story is like. Make sure you do that. Make us empathetic with your main character early. So I make you empathetic with the character early, but it's no paradise. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So that first line is definitely going to make you want to root for her, or not root for her, or judge her. It'll make you interested, but it's not the Toni Morrison level of first lines that I was hoping to have. That kind of line I don't give you until the first line of the next scene, which is another person whose story we're just not telling right now. We tell some things. It's very telling to hear how he perceives things, speaks about things, to get some of his insights. But even reading the short story and getting the little bit of information about this character, it reads like, oh, damn, there's just so much more that I have to know about this guy. And that's the thing. It's just so much more to tell, but it's not his story. So here we are, working on the other person's story. So what I do know is that my beta reader, who finished the whole story, thought my transitions were well done. And my critique partner, who did not finish the story yet, loves my wording. How I don't know if loves is the word, but the wording was complimented, is what I'll say. So I basically started with the main character in the only moment of her life that appears to be boring, but is certainly not. She just she's in a transition period from normal human drama that's kind of extreme to going into supernatural drama that's also a little extreme. Having the conscious one, the conscious desires inciting incident being later in the telling, I guess you can chalk it up to artistic choice, which he does not shirk away from. I will say there are certain things that he warns new writers not to do. And for the most part, I don't do those things, but there was like one thing, and I can't think of what it is right now, but I was like, whoops, he's warning against that, but it's too late. So I just think that the point is now to make sure I do it well. And reading his book is making me feel like it's going well, and the critiques that I've gotten thus far make me feel like I'm doing well also. But I can see how that could easily not necessarily translate from all critique partners and beta readers. But I think that still lets me know that I have a technically good story, even if I may or may not be writing it in the perfect way. I think, again, that just, you're chalking that up to creative difference. So definitely I feel I have a story that I should continue. I still hope that my critique partners, my CPs, like my story. So more on that as it unfolds. That's where we are. I want to say more, but I just feel like I don't have that much time. So thank you for watching. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I want to hear what you think about what I said. I want to know your story journey, and if you've experienced similar things like this, what you may have heard back, like the type of stuff you've gotten back from your critique partners and beta readers. Who inspires you? Who teaches you? How do you learn? Do you take a class? Do you read books? Or are you a YouTube binger, which you probably are if you're here? And again, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Peace, love, Robbie.
Could you do me a favor and ring my bell?